All right, everyone. My name is Dr. Jacob Wilson, and if you guys are tuning in live right now, it's so good to see you. For you guys who can't watch the whole thing, don't worry. We'll be posting this again in professional format on YouTube. So I want to open up. We're gonna answer your questions live, but I want to open this up with an interesting question. With what's the difference between training for like WWE or wrestling versus bodybuilding, right? So here's the thing, okay? We got a guy here you guys know as Jinder Mahal, and Jinder Mahal's this guy's just an amazing human being. He actually just did a one of our shows, and we're gonna be launching episode 2 of our podcast. We're gonna be launching that on YouTube coming up here soon, probably next week we launch it. And so we'll be launching that episode. We did an interview with Jinder Mahal. Now, Jinder Mahal trains here. He trains here like 5 days a week. He was the WWE champion of the world. He was the USA champion, and he's been wrestling just a long time. Now, the thing about him is that he trained for a long time, and then he left WWE. And when he came back in better shape than he's ever been in his life. In other words, he had the best physique probably in the sport when he came back. And that was a large part, I would say, along with his skill, to accelerating him to be champion of the world. Okay? So if you guys have been following wrestling a long time, you know the old school guys like Ultimate Warrior, right? These guys were jacked. Clearly British Bulldogs, right? Clearly, these old school guys were huge and enormous. So building muscle is a big part of wrestling. So what I would say, if you look at wrestling as bodybuilding is a part of wrestling, and that you need to be symmetrical, you need to have a lot of muscle size. So all the principles that we talk about here on the show are really important for that. You know, Rob Terry's going to be coming in. He's a wrestler. He's also a professional bodybuilder. He'll be coming into ASPI here soon too. But another guy who's a professional bodybuilder and a professional wrestler, right? So the point is the principles that we talk to you about in bodybuilding are very important for being a wrestler, because you can't just be a slob. You got to be chiseled. You got to look the part, okay? But then on top of your normal bodybuilding, obviously with wrestling, you have to have the attributes of endurance. You have to have the attributes of power. You have to have the attributes of strength. And it's not that bodybuilders are certainly strong, right? But they don't train for power. Probably one of the biggest things that you could separate. They don't train for power. They don't train for speed. They might train for strength, because lifting heavy makes you bigger, but they're not training for power, and they're not training for speed or agility. So one big difference is when you're training for wrestling, you're doing more explosive movements. You're doing plyometrics, right? You're doing jumping, bounding movements, maybe, potentially. But you're also, you might be doing a lot more band work. Obviously, you're doing a lot more skilled work, okay? So the point is that with WWE, with wrestling, you've got to include a lot more athletic type of training, more power, more explosive training. Whereas bodybuilders can honestly get away with doing a lot more isolation movements. In fact, they have to. So I'd say those are the two biggest differences, but bodybuilding certainly is a major component to wrestling, as you'll see in the interview that we have with Jinder Mahal or Raj Desi next week. Bodybuilding is a big part of his life, big part of his career, big part of his success, okay? So with that, guys, I'll take some questions.
What actually causes muscle growth when we work out?
So, well, technically, what causes muscle growth is short-term changes in protein synthesis. So short-term, your body starts taking the amino acids from the protein that you eat in your diet and incorporates it into the muscle, and that's muscle growth. Over a long period of time, your muscles grow. The question is, what triggers protein synthesis to go up, okay? Or protein breakdown, the opposite of protein synthesis, to go down. What triggers that process? A couple different things. Number one, lactic acid in your muscle seems to trigger muscle growth. Number two, tension. Tension on the muscle, meaning the load, the weight, the sheer tearing on the muscle is going to actually trigger a growth response. In other words, you have mechanical sensors in your muscle that basically the mechanical sensors sense that load and they translate it to muscle growth or protein synthesis. Another way that your muscles grow is swelling. When they swell, like when you get a big pump, then it'll actually trigger muscle growth because your muscles kind of have to restructure themselves because they think they're in danger. So again, heavy lifting, tension, pump training, more for the pump, and supersets, giant sets, high reps, short rest period lengths for the lactic acid.
Do some types of fat digest faster or slower than others?
So yeah, some types of fats do digest slower, faster than others. So medium chain triglycerides, for example, which are found in things like coconut oil, are going to digest faster than like your saturated long chain fatty acids like you would find in a steak or in butter. Okay, so your fastest burning fats are really going to be the coconut oil type of fats, or taking medium chain triglycerides, versus animal-based fats, which are going to be slower.
Does phosphatic acid actually work, and is it safe for professional athletes or even Olympic athletes?
So interesting that you ask about phosphatic acid. I didn't even mention it, but remember I said you have mechanical signals. So when you have tension, and the tension translates to that tension, which is a mechanical signal, translates to protein synthesis. Guess what that signal is in the muscle? It's phosphatic acid. So I did a lot of research on phosphatic acid. In fact, I did 3 or 4 studies on it. And I looked at it from molecular level and to a whole body level. So real quick, when I lift weights, the mechanical signal turns to a chemical signal. That chemical signal is phosphatic acid. Okay, so phosphatic acid is kind of like a phospholipid that basically triggers muscle growth. Okay, so the thing to understand about it is we did research. There's 2 labs kind of simultaneously did research. A good friend of mine from UCF, Jeff Stout, kind of did the original research, and he found supplementing with phosphatic acid actually made you get bigger and stronger. We followed that up, myself, Ryan Lowry, Dr. Jordan Joy, we followed that up with a study, and we found that in highly resistance trained athletes, taking phosphatic acid, probably like 3 grams a day, actually made you grow. I'm surprised it's not as more popular than it is. In fact, that's got to be your next supplement review. But in addition to that, we did a molecular study, and we saw that phosphatic acid directly, when you basically bathed muscle cells in it, turned on protein synthesis. So phosphatic acid from a molecular level and from a whole body level seems to work. Now, we didn't publish this study, but we did a study in sedentary older people. We gave them phosphatic acid. I was hoping it would mimic resistance training, but it didn't. So it seems like you kind of have to apply phosphatic acid with a resistance training stimulus to get it to work. But yeah, 3 grams a day, it does seem to be safe. I do actually highly recommend it. I even tried it personally. I kind of want to try it again. But I tried it personally. Actually, I did grow on it.
Do you really have to have a protein shake after your workout?
Well, no, you don't really have to have anything after your workout. But I think if you want to optimize growth, I think having a protein shake is a sure bet to help that process. The way to think about it is that, look, every little thing counts. Especially when you look over 3 years' time, everything counts. So basically, I do think having a protein shake after you train optimizes things. You know what I mean? Now, listen, if you're not trying to, if you're just kind of casually resistance training, and you're not looking for massive gains, do you need a protein shake after you train to grow? No. But if you're really trying to maximize gains and you're pushing the envelope, I do think everything counts, and having a rapid amount of amino acids quickly can help. So if you didn't have it before your workout, I would say having it after is probably a good idea. Now, some of you might be saying, what if I eat right after I work out? Well, then I would still say have a protein shake, or at least have some amino acids, like essential amino acids or branched chain amino acids. At least get you positive protein balance before you actually start eating. Now, I will say this, it matters most if you haven't eaten in a while. You know, like if you had a meal before you trained, it might not matter as much, but damn, why not, right? If it's going to make you grow, why not just have it?
How would you do 2-a-days while on a lower upper body part split?
So 2 days on a lower upper body split. So, well, I would train lower in the morning and upper at night. That's probably what I would do. So probably you want to start with the hardest, which probably be your lower body, and then go to your upper body. Now, alternatively, I will say this. There's a priority principle type of thing. So, for example, myself, my lower body always grew faster than my upper body. Now I always prioritize my lower body. So in that case, I probably could have used doing my upper body first. You know, if your upper body is lagging behind, maybe do that first. But I'd say lower body in the morning, upper body at night. Now, as far as like throughout the week, if you're just doing that, you can do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or do it 4 days a week, you know, and just switch up your repetitions, the load, the type of exercise you use on each time.
How could high blood pressure affect gains?
You know, that's a great question. I think oftentimes if you have high blood pressure, it could reflect that you have non-optimal cardiovascular health. So high blood pressure oftentimes is caused by stiffer arteries that aren't as compliant, and the cardiovascular system is important to bringing nutrients to the muscle. So I'm not going to say high blood pressure is necessarily going to affect gains, but having poor cardiovascular function could affect your gains. Because high cardiovascular function means better insulin sensitivity, better endurance in the gym, better recovery. So in that case, what I would say is work on improving your cardiovascular function. And that could be done with maybe lower carbohydrate diets will lower your blood pressure. As much as I don't like doing it, cardio will help lower your blood pressure. You know, and eating overall healthy will do that. But it's going to improve your overall cardiovascular function. And there is evidence with people who have really large muscle that they get to a point if their cardiovascular function's low, if their muscles get so big, there's evidence of like cell death on some of their fibers. And that's because their capillaries can't supply enough food for the muscle to survive. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
And we've got time for one more. Is there an ideal repetition speed for muscle growth?
I think your simple thing I typically say with muscle growth is probably like maximal intended velocity. This is general. Look, switching things up is always a great thing to do. You can switch up things, and that's a way to go. So sticking with one thing, saying one, it's like what's the best rep range for muscle growth? Well, you want to switch the rep ranges up. But basically what I'm saying is that I wouldn't focus on slowing a weight down necessarily. Lift controlled, but then lift as fast as you can controlled. So a lot of people say, oh, I thought going slow was good for muscle growth. Well, let me ask you this, okay? Say that your 1RM is 200 pounds, and I put 185 pounds on the bar and say lift as fast as you can. You going to be lifting that bar fast? No. You're going to be trying to lift it fast, okay, which is going to allow you to get more reps. But you can't lift it fast because the weight's so heavy. Alternatively, let's say I put 150 on there, say lift as fast as you can. You might lift the bar a lot faster, but what about the last 3 reps? What about the last 2 reps? What about the last rep? You're lifting it very slow because you're under so much fatigue. That's why I say maximal intended velocity. Let the weight and the fatigue dictate the speed, but don't purposely slow it down, okay? Unless you're trying to work on form or trying to build a mind-muscle connection. Alrighty. So guys, listen, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. It's always a pleasure to have you. Again, like if this will be released professionally probably next week or so. If you weren't here at the beginning, make sure you do check out next week. We'll be releasing that Jinder Mahal interview. And come back next week because we've got a real special announcement for you. Thank you so much. See you next time.